Good evening. I'm Bob O'Donnell, Superintendent of the State College Area School District. And I really appreciate you taking time to engage with us this evening through this pretty unique situation we're calling a virtual town hall. The purpose of this evening is to share a little overview with you regarding a proposal our administration has made recently to our board of directors. And that proposal includes extending our elementary school day as well as shifting our secondary student day to be a little bit later. So before I get into that overview with you, I'm going to go ahead and have Mr. Bach introduce himself.
Hey, thanks, Bob. I'm Vernon Bach, Supervisor of Elementary Education, and I'm excited to be here tonight and a unique opportunity to answer any questions that you have and provide any clarification regarding the proposal.
Thanks, Vern. What we've proposed, and we'll put a slide up here so you can see exactly what the times would be. We're proposing for the fall of 2018, not the fall of 2017, that we extend our elementary student day and that we shift our secondary student day to a later time slot. Our entire proposal is located on our website, scasd.org. In the upper left of the website, you can see a link to the extended day proposal, and you can see all the current information as well as we'll be adding information to the site. Although we've had scheduled 10 face-to-face programs this month, we wanted to try this unique situation or tool to try to reach families that are pretty busy. And again, we appreciate you for engaging with us. We have two remaining face-to-face programs for our community, and May 25th at Park Forest Elementary School and June 1st in our high school north building, and the information is located on the website there. As you see what's being proposed, our current times are in the middle column, and to the right are the proposed times as we've made them to our board. The elementary day would shift to 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., and the secondary days would begin at 8:40 a.m., middle school concluding at 3:44, and high school at 3:40. Now, when we conclude the transportation study within the next 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to look at what options can impact the proposal and improve it. I need to tell you that the challenge, and we'll show you one logistics slide as an example, the challenge of changing any type of times in our school district do include transporting all of our students, about 7,000 students, as well as all of the parochial and charter school students to and from school each day. And with being 150 square miles, there are some constraints to that process. The main reason why we proposed making these changes to our board really relates to improving student learning experiences in our schools. The proposal, as you see it at this point, would provide each student during their K-5 experience with almost a year's worth more of experiences with mathematics, science, language arts, and social studies, being about 24 additional minutes per day. It would also give us greater access for students for enrichment experiences, as well as interventions that we provide to students who struggle in school. The increased time would also provide us more opportunity for hands-on and project-based learning experiences. For example, we're really excited to update our science curriculum, and our plans do include much more experiential learning experiences there. At this time, I'm going to ask Vern to share some of the other informational items related to the proposal.
Thanks, Bob. In addition to more time in the core, with the extended learning time, we're proposing that we add additional physical activity for students throughout the course of the week, and that can take the form, will take the form of additional PE time, as well as additional recess during the course of each week. We're really excited about potentially implementing an integrated health and wellness curriculum with our PE curriculum. Also, with the proposal, we're looking at exploring the implementation of a world language and culture curriculum, and also looking at exploring school day options for students who participate in rehearsals with choir and instrumental music. Back to you, Bob.
Thanks.
Thank you guys very much. I just want to encourage everyone to go ahead and ask their questions in the comment section of the live stream. We're here to answer your questions and hopefully educate the community on what's going on with this proposal. So we're going to go ahead and take our first question is from Julie Quanzica. She says, I'm very concerned about how late kids involved in sports, drama, band, etc. will be getting home. and also about how dark it's going to be when they're trying to practice in the winter.
Yeah, I'll field that, Nabil. There's no question that after-school activities, whether it's sports or clubs or music experiences, would begin 24 minutes later than they currently do. The proposed day would start 30 minutes later than our current start time at the high school level in particular. What we intend to implement for the fall of 18 would be a much more extensive zero period option. Currently, we offer physical education during an early morning period before our traditional start time. What we would plan to do is to implement 45-minute periods, more traditional times in that zero period slot, so they begin around 7:45 a.m. and be an option. These would be an option to all students. We're also looking for the development of some hybrid experiences as well as some online experiences. We know that after our students leave State High, they need skill sets to effectively learn through online and hybrid experiences that we currently offer, the hybrid experiences, but we'd like to go ahead and see if those are opportunities to improve the day in the life of our students. It also really is something that we've discussed in doing regardless of what happens with this proposal, and take a look at our student day beyond traditional times. Learning doesn't start and stop just because of a time on the bell schedule. Next Monday morning, I'm going to meet with 9th and 10th graders to discuss the proposal and then also ask them for their feedback. Our high school principals have prepared a survey for our high school student body to gain their feedback around how that zero period option might work best for students. There's no question that the later end time would start experiences a little later. However, we believe that our scheduling with the mid-pen for athletics is something we've been working on. I'm really excited that Peg Pennepackers really improved upon our scheduling. Chris Weekland has been having meetings, he's our new athletic director, meetings with coaches to discuss their feedback on some ideas that would make the experiences much more doable for student athletes and their families, and that would include some unique scheduling changes, including some weekend experiences, as well as the possibility of some doubleheader competitions on Saturdays. So, our involvement with the mid-pen for student athletes is something that we want to better utilize that relationship and improve experiences that result in less missed class time for our students. That's all I have for that one there.
Great, thank you very much. I'm seeing in the comments, it looks like some people are having difficulty with the stream, but then other people are commenting that it's working just fine for them. I just want to remind everyone that if you are having difficulty, go ahead and we're going to keep broadcasting here tonight, and we're going to download and record this and post this. So if you're unable to get in right now, you will be able to watch it later on. But for the people that it's working fine for, we're just going to continue on, and just hopefully people will get in and you can keep answering your questions. So the next question, I think, is for you, Vern.
Yeah.
Sue Siegel wants to know, I'm wondering if there are any updates available on the safety concerns of elementary kids walking on the roads in the dark to their bus stops when daylight savings time in place with the 8 a.m. start time.
Hey, thanks, Nabil. And Sue, thank you for your question. I think our transportation department does an excellent job of really having our buses run on a pretty precise schedule. Both Bob and I have children who ride our school buses, and just through personal experience, we know those buses run on a very tight schedule, that their students aren't standing out waiting for the bus 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. They're usually pretty precise and within a few minutes of the designated pickup time. So we don't envision that students will be standing out waiting for buses long periods of time. Currently, we're engaging in a transportation audit that's taking a look at our transportation routes, and hopefully will be able to provide us with some recommended efficiencies to make some of those routes a little bit shorter, but also hopefully we don't envision students being picked up, elementary age students being picked up before 7:15 or 7:20. So thanks, Sue, for your question.
I want to just add something to that, Vern. In regard to our current experiences, we do begin picking up secondary students at 6:38 a.m. As I mentioned earlier, the size of the district is a key aspect of that. But we do have a slide to share with you because we've had some feedback around this matter. What if we simply extended our elementary day and had students get out after secondary? Here's one example. You could move some of the times around, but there are some times that are locked in, and it really relates to the transportation turnaround. The example that you see in front of you has an example where, what if we only added 40 minutes and not as much to the elementary day, but had it go later than secondary? If you did that, your elementary day could be 8:50 to 3:36 p.m. In that scenario, your secondary schedule would have to begin at 7:50 a.m. and conclude at 2:54 p.m. And that's really because of what you see there on the back end of the day there with the 3:36 p.m. So that's one example. In that particular example or that case, high school students would secondary students would begin getting picked up at 6:18 a.m., not 6:38 a.m. And obviously, we don't want to be picking students up at 6:38 a.m. We think we can do better than that and improve the day in the life of. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob. Fern, this question I'll direct at you also.
Sure.
As we move forward here. Mary Hutchinson has the question. She says, as this relates to and affects kindergartners, this would be a very long day for a 5-year-old. I'm curious what child development experts would say regarding this.
Yeah, thanks, Mary, for your question. We believe the extended day for kindergarten will be more developmentally appropriate. No doubt that kindergarten learning has become more rigorous over the past several years, and our teachers, due to time constraints, have had to abandon some things like free play, imaginative play, maybe additional recess time, and even a rest time for our kindergartners. We think that through our proposal, more time will allow for our kindergarten teachers to implement those types of activities. And we've heard loud and clear from our kindergarten teachers a real desire to do that. So that's exciting. I think we will be able to implement that. And that would reduce, we think, some of the anxiety that some of our young learners are feeling because we have a 6-hour and 6-minute day. There's a lot of things that we have to cover through our curriculum, our state curriculum. And our hope is through the extended day and providing these types of opportunities and having a little bit more time will reduce the anxiety with our kiddos. I would also encourage our families to come out and check out what an elementary classroom of today looks like. Our kindergartners, our elementary age students aren't really sitting and learning in columns and rows like we were used to when we were kids. It's very different style of teaching these days with stations set up and students moving between stations and moving between learning experiences. Some of it's teacher directed, some of it is collaborative work with students working together, and in other instances, there's students engaging in independent work. We know that our younger students' attention span is about 10 to 15 minutes, so we structure our classes throughout the day to accommodate that. And what you would see is a lot of movement throughout the course of the day and students engaging and transitioning frequently during a lesson. Thanks, Mary.
Okay, we have a question now from Carrie Linto-Smith. She went ahead and asked this question live, and she wants to know, will teachers get paid more for working more hours?
Sure, I'll take it. Right now, our contract wouldn't change with our teachers if this proposal was approved. What would transpire is that, the elementary teachers' responsibilities in the day, the time that they work every day, would be more comparable to our secondary teachers. So to make a change like this, there are collective bargaining rules to changing a work day, which this would do in part of our district. So we did work for about a year on this, developing this proposal with our teachers, including teachers who are in leadership roles with our Teachers Association. And when we went into the planning of this, we did, and I shared a slide with you that is more traditional, what schools do and have elementary students depart later than secondary at the end of the school day. When we got into the process with our teachers, the focus was on student experiences and how we could improve those experiences, not simply looking at what other schools are doing, but we do look to what other school systems do, both instructionally and operationally. When we got into this process of discussing this idea with our teachers, what came out of it, I believe, is better for K-12 kids. And there's quite a bit of information that we've included to give you an idea of what the day in the life of for students would include.
So this question is also for you, Bob. The question is, I saw on the district website research allocating later start times for middle and high school students. I have elementary school children. What research supports an earlier elementary start time?
Thanks. It's a good question. Basically, we haven't found research on the elementary age students. So what I did was I called a sleep disorder specialist in town, Dr. Royal King, had 2 conversations with her regarding the matter. The key that she pointed out to me was that secondary students, and this is evidence in the research, they cannot change their sleep cycle effectively. So if you try to get a secondary student to bed earlier, in most instances, that adolescent's not going to fall asleep. And on the flip side, in the morning, they're going to struggle to get up at early times. That's obviously the recommendation from the Pediatricians Association about an 8:30 or later start time. But what Dr. King shared with me about elementary students is, and she did say, hey, it'd be great if you could have everybody come at 8:30. If we did run all the students at the same time frame, we would increase our transportation budget by at least $3.5 million a year, and we don't see that as an option. But what Dr. King shared in regard to elementary students, they can effectively change their sleep patterns and cycle so they can go to bed earlier, and that this proposal would allow all kids to get adequate amounts of sleep to a better degree than what we have going on now. Thanks.
So the next question is for you, Bob. You did the parent survey in 2014. Can you give me a timeline of how we got to where we are now?
Sure. There were conversations within the school district about this challenge of a really short elementary student day long before I arrived in 2011. In 2012, I was having a conversation with our curriculum director. He's a former principal and teacher, Brian Peters, and we were taking a walk through a school and some classrooms, and we were looking at what was happening with the Title I experience. It's a reading specialist helping a struggling learner, and that student was missing writing instruction, which didn't make sense. When we went through all the scheduling information behind it and saw the constraints that the teachers were working through to try to get those students their intervention time, we understood how challenging it was because of the short day. And with that said, the conversation continued to move further, and obviously we reached a point where I asked our board to consider this as part of collective bargaining, so that we'd have an opportunity to address our very short elementary student day, which we haven't found a shorter student day or anybody in the state that has an elementary student day near ours. As you can see, most school districts that you would compare us to are about 30 to 40 minutes longer than our elementary day. One school district that has compared quite a bit with us, Cumberland Valley, is 50 minutes. It's almost 50 minutes. Excuse me. It's probably about 44 minutes longer than ours. At 6 hours and 50 minutes. So I think I got it. Thanks.
Vern, this one's for you now.
Yeah.
How will instrumental music, orchestra, and choir be handled? Parents want to incorporate into the school day so that students do not have to come in even earlier.
Sure. I can relate. I have a son or a daughter who participates in band, and I'm coming in at that 7:25 drop off out of Grayswood, so I understand parents. The proposal would allow us to incorporate those rehearsals during the school day, and currently our students are missing a 5th recess. With the proposal, we would actually add that 5th time slot into our school day, and then students could have the option to have that rehearsal time during that 5th recess period, and students wouldn't be missing academic learning or core learning experiences for that. So we would very much like to see that be pushed into the school day as well. So thank you, Nabil.
Well, so this is a little bit longer question by Katie Stager. She says, and I think, Vern, maybe this is related to elementary, so you can go ahead and start on this.
Sure.
State College is a highly ranked district in the state of PA. What deficiency are we trying to address by adding an hour to the elementary school day? If this plan is implemented, what methods will be used to gauge the overall success or failure of the plan?
Sure. No question. Thanks for the question. And we're a very good school district, and I think we want to become excellent. And we have to recognize that we do have a pocket of a group of students that are struggling to achieve in our district. 56% of our students perform in the upper quartile across the district, and that's pretty impressive. But we also have about 50% of our students who are performing in the mid quartiles, and 8% of our students are performing in the lower quartile of student achievement. And those students are not making a year's worth of growth in that lower quartile. So we know through research that we need more time for learning for those students. In addition, I think we just want more time for all students so that we can provide a richer experience through experiential learning, hands-on learning, project-based learning. We're excited about the incorporation of science coming up and being able to get into kind of lab-based, problem-based learning. To answer the question about how we would measure it, we're always looking at student achievement data and looking at not necessarily PSSA data, but growth over time. We administer a MAP assessment that really measures students' growth over time from the beginning of the year to the mid-year to the end of the year, and really using those metrics we've extended the day, so what type of impact is this having on student learning? And we would expect it to have a very positive impact.
I'll add a couple thoughts there. When we look at how we would measure experiences for students if the day changed, and I think we need to measure and take a look at these things even if we don't change the day. We have a priority both in our last strategic plan as well as what we've been working on this past year with a pretty large group of community and district members here, and it relates to the achievement gap and the learning gap, but also the opportunity gap. Vern had mentioned what we would do with the student day and bringing music experiences with group rehearsals onto the school day. Well, at 7:20 a.m. when Vern's dropping his daughter off at Gray's Woods, there's a lot of parents who probably aren't allowing their kids to engage in those experiences because they can't do that. That's an example of an opportunity gap because we have students who aren't engaging in those experiences. And one of the things that we've prioritized with strategic planning was that we want all students to be engaged in something outside of our classroom and regular classroom experiences. And so that would be one thing in addition to student learning that we would take a look at as far as data goes. We would also ask people what they think. One of our highest priorities is to have every student get up every morning and want to come to school. And we've been monitoring their answers to that question every year that we ask students. Although we have a pretty high percentage, we're not where anybody wants to be, especially if the kid who says no is your kid. So those are things that we want to continue to monitor. And obviously, if we change the student day, we believe that in our elementary schools, some of the rushing that happens because of such a short day and expectations of us and our teachers, we would change the day in the life of the slow each student's day down. In particular, we would expect to greatly reduce or eliminate homework for every elementary student, required homework experiences. I know that our board has talked with me about reviewing our homework policy regardless of what happens to the student day. And we want to take a good look at what we should be doing as a system when it comes to homework. With that said, we know that we have quite a few families who desire to be engaged with their children around academic experiences that are happening in school. And we wouldn't say, let's stop those experiences. We would take a look at the required component. Thanks.
Just to follow up on that homework question, because we did get a lot of comments about that. So just a simple, as part of this proposal, will my child be getting more homework?
Absolutely not in the elementary schools. No, because we want to have more experiences or time for students to do their learning experiences with the support of teachers at school. And there's no question that to be responsive to students, we need to be able to scaffold for them and support them as they need it. Some students may not need that support to the same degree, but as Vern talked earlier about the experiences in school, and hopefully parents have seen some of the changes we've made in recent years with language arts. What our teachers are doing with whole group, small group, and individual learning experiences is evidence that we would use that time to a very impactful degree with students and to do some more of those things that we're already doing like that.
And I want to go back to the previous question a little bit. We had a comment on here, a question from Joanna Halshalter, and it sort of relates to what we were talking about just previous to talking about the homework. And she says, how do test results K-12 compared to the other district used for the elementary day comparison? Are our students noticeably falling behind academically because of the shorter day?
To answer that question, and thanks for that question, we take a pretty careful look at our MAP data, which is nationally normed data. So it gives us an opportunity to really look at how we compare, not just within our own cohort within the district, but take a step outside of our district and look at how we compare nationally. And what we're seeing is, by and large, our students are really achieving at a high level. We are seeing some pockets where students are not achieving at that same level. The other thing that I wanted to touch on, Nabil, that I neglected to mention in that previous question was, currently with our 6-hour and 6-minute day, we're having to make some tough decisions around providing interventions for students throughout the course of the day. And with a 6-hour and 6-minute day, we're having to pull our students from their core learning experiences to provide an intervention. And students sometimes are missing science and social studies. Our teachers and staff, and we're not okay with that. We want to have more time during the day to be able to, so students don't miss those core learning experiences. The same with enrichment. We have students that are being pulled from core learning experiences to receive an enrichment activity. So it's hard to do that. We want to make sure that all students have the opportunity to be there for core learning. So.
Hey, one thing I didn't say about homework, obviously things such as reading would be something that we would continue to expect at home, but as far as
20 minutes a night?
Yeah, I mean, as far as other required homework experiences, we would expect to greatly reduce those consistently across the district.
Yeah.
Through elementary.
And just also, we're sort of staying on topic here, but I want to keep going down this road here. We have a question from Katie Trails Jones, and she says, is there a metric being used to define the success of this additional time? And if so, can these 54 minutes be taken away if we find that the district had not improved with regard to these metrics?
I think we're using a lot of metrics. We have a lot of tools. One thing that we've neglected to mention, which I think is important, is not just the quantitative metrics, but also the qualitative metrics that we use as a district, and surveying our students about what is it like in the day in the life of a high school student or a middle school student, and even an elementary student. So that's a component of what we're looking at as well when we're looking at school effectiveness. We're looking at, we have measures of academic progress data, those growth measures. We're looking at PSSA data as a measure. We have multiple measures that we're looking at to determine whether we're showing growth. I've turned to you, Bob, on that.
Yeah, I had mentioned some of the things earlier, so I'm not going to repeat my answers again, but I do think we'd want to look at many data points that are highly valued here. Curriculum-based assessments included. But I do think, Vern, your point about how we ask students about their experiences, that we survey parents annually that surrounding what we believe are very important to the experiences here in the district, and we want to continue doing those experiences and sharing those publicly with our board. They ask for those every year. We review those, we discuss those, and obviously if there's a major problem, there's always an opportunity to consider change. With that said, there's a reason most school districts don't change start and end times, because it's a pretty complex operation when you're dealing with a number of families and students. And so we've looked long and hard at it, and we believe that it would improve the experience for elementary students. And this was the proposal that we generated with a lot of teacher involvement.
Okay, so we'll switch gears here, and Vern, this question will be for you. Mm-hmm. What's the rationale for starting What's the rationale for starting world language instruction only at the K2 level and later expand to grades 3 through 5?
Yeah, thanks for the question. And just to clarify, we've not made a decision on the implementation of world language. We are looking at that pretty heavily. We are working through a district committee that's comprised of Penn State world language staff, really looking at how to roll that out and having some discussion around that. We're also open potentially to a K-5 rollout option. So there's a lot of dialogue around that. What would that look like? How we would roll that out? What would be the impact after students have a world language? If we roll this out and we start next year, over the next 5 years, what's the impact at our middle level, and potentially could students take a high school course at the middle level? So we're considering all options right now. There's nothing that's been decided in how we're going to roll that out. There is a real strong interest. We saw that through the parent survey. I think it was almost 70% of our parents, when we questioned them about exploring extending the school day, many of the parents were interested in a world language option. And I think we're heavily investigating that right now, and we'll develop that proposal and that how that gets rolled out over the next several months with our staff. Thank you.
Okay, we have a question here for Bob from Felicia Coe, and she wants to know, will half-day kindergarten still be an option?
Yes, and I'll actually let Vern handle that.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, kindergarten the half-day option is still on the table. We do have several families, or I wouldn't say several, a few families who exercise that option at the beginning of each school year. And in conversation with our elementary principals, it's funny, generally around September, October timeframe, students don't want to continue on the half-day schedule, and they don't want to miss the fun of learning in the classroom. And a lot of our students then transition into a full-day schedule. But yes, that will still be an option. Also, we have options for partial homeschooling, and that's an option as well. So there's certainly options there. Thanks.
So there's been a lot of talk, this one's for you, Bob, about the parent survey back in 2014. So will the district send another parent survey about the extended day proposal?
You bet. The survey in 2014, when we began asking questions, we wanted to see what our parents thought. We had a little over 1,000 parents respond to that survey. And the key question is, what do you think about us exploring the elementary student day being expanded 30 to 40 minutes? And the reason the question was worded that way is we were looking with a traditional lens on things. How might we do this without disrupting the secondary day very much? And I shared an example of what that could look like here earlier. It was, I believe, 79% of the parents that responded said yes to that question. And, so we have explored it. We've explored it in depth, and, we've come up with a proposal that's a little different than that initial thinking, and it had great input from our teachers, and we think it's a much better plan than what our administrative team was thinking at the time when we looked at how would we do this in the least disruptive manner to the secondary day. So I'm not sure if the board would want to do another proposal to go revisit the same question. We'll obviously, as we work to update the proposal for September, we'll be engaged throughout the summer and then the fall with our board, as well as we'll turn around when we do update any proposals to our board and engage with the community to a high degree.
And once again, I am seeing in the comments that some people aren't able to see the stream. Some people are. It seems that I'm not sure why that's happening, but for those of you that are still there, we appreciate you tuning in. And for those that either can see the comments or hear me, just want to let you know that this is being recorded, and we will put this whole video up so that you can watch it after tonight as well. So the next question is, it's going to go back a little bit. We did already talk about the special, but why don't we go back a little bit here, Vern, and kind of explain what is the fifth special, and what do you foresee it being?
Sure, and thanks for the question, Nabil. I think sometimes we get into the educational language and what is it special? Well, throughout the course of the day, we would schedule a 45-minute session for each and every day for a student to receive a fine art, whether that's music, art. They would also receive a PE and potentially a library, and then we'd be looking at incorporating that fifth special, which we talked about earlier, which would be that world language. I do want to make note that currently our students are receiving, once they go through a transition from their core learning in their classroom to their special, they really receive about 35 minutes of that instruction, whether that's music, art, PE, or library, about 35 minutes of that currently. And under our new proposal, that would be increased to about 45 minutes. So thank you, Nabil, for the question, for the opportunity for me to clarify that. So
you're welcome. And also, you talked about foreign language. What foreign language would that be?
We haven't decided on that. There's been interest, and the World Language Committee has hasn't given us a recommendation on that. We're looking currently at options. One option that has surfaced, or one recommendation that has surfaced, was really looking at a Latin-based language like Spanish or French or Italian. And there's a tremendous amount of research out there that would support that implementation being supportive of our ELA curriculum. So that's one proposal or one recommendation that we've heard out there. We're still considering all options with that, and how we would roll that out.
One thing to add to that discussion is by having a world language with a cultural component to it would be consistent with our expectations around our school climate and inclusive excellence component of our board policy, where we're able to help students beginning in kindergarten to really understand or begin to understand different cultures within our community and what it means to be inclusive and what it means to be exclusive, and why we need to be inclusive as part of our community. So I do think that would be an opportunity to formalize some experiences and systematize those beginning in kindergarten with that opportunity. Yeah. Even if we don't do that, we are working on quite a few things in that area. Obviously, that experience would be highly integrated.
Okay, moving along here. We have a question here from Katie Trail Jones. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but I think she says that I do understand the need for more teacher planning time, but I'm not a teacher, so I don't understand why additional teacher planning time means to kids that spend more time in school also.
I'll start off and
Okay.
let Vern jump in. The teacher planning time, what we built into the day was specials. We have 40 minutes for physical education, music, art, and library. What we wanted to do was build a little bit more time into those for our students. And so the intent we weren't set out to build in more planning time. However, when we prioritize those experiences to have a little bit more time, that did enable us to build in some planning time. We're also taking advantage of some recess time when students are engaging in recess to help teachers. Teachers are planning very complex experiences for students. What I said earlier about language arts, we're requiring whole group, small group, and individual experiences for students. And that takes a lot of planning by teachers. We want our teachers to be very well planned. The best things that we give students for learning is a highly trained, well-prepared teacher with a great plan. Yeah. And that takes time. And we want to do that in a manner that teachers work together. When teachers share what's working, what's not working, what's the evidence behind that, they're going to get better. Mm-hmm. And right now we have a very limited amount of time on our school day for that. And you could say, hey, we'll put it at the start or the end of the day. Well, the challenge there is we want our teachers engaged beyond the classroom, whether it's running intramurals or coaching, what have you. But also we have meetings with parents, mm-hmm. meetings with each other, focusing on special needs, students with special needs or students with gifted and talented needs. And those meetings are going to take place before school starts and after school. And we want to honor those obligations. So to say we're going to consistently give teachers that time together in an uninterrupted manner means that students need to be somewhere and we can't interrupt. So the specials do give us a great opportunity to help our teachers to have more planning time. And the planning time that we're looking at would be commensurate or similar to what we have with secondary schools. Right now, our elementary teachers walk their students to and from specials. So that's within that 40-minute window. So it is actually less than that they have to every day on the school day to do their planning.
Yeah. I would add to that too, that there's to that question, and I appreciate the question, there's a tremendous research base around teachers having the opportunity to plan during the day and bring examples of student work to the table and having several minds around the table to develop rich learning experiences for our students. So I always like to say the IQ of the whole building goes up when we have everybody working together to kind of plan those lessons, and that has a direct impact on increasing student achievement. So the IQ of the whole building just really goes up through that process, and there's a tremendous research base that supports that.
So I have a question here from, it's not really a question, but it's more of a phrase, but I think that you can speak to this. It's from Costanza Ehrenhaus, and they say, I think more meaningful, focused work during the school day might be more beneficial than more time at school.
Well, there's no question we want to continue to refine and improve our curriculum so that students' experiences are maximized with whatever time we have. There's no question with the time that we have currently, the experiences students have on the school day, in particular, literacy is a good example. To expect that we want all students to be reading where they should be by third grade. I mean, there's quite a bit of research on early literacy, and we're not there. We're not close to that. And we believe this experience would help to that end, but also provide students with opportunities to do their learning more than where we are now. I mean, that short day, we have substantially less experiences than any school system that we could identify.
And Bob, just to jump in on that, we need more time for kids to wrestle with concepts a little bit longer, to be able to, get into those problem-based learning experiences. And we also know through research, the way we increase students' reading achievement is giving them more time to read and engaging students in text and allowing them to have choice in that. And that just gives the extended time would give those, us the potential to have those opportunities.
Obviously, if we don't change the student day, we will continue through our curriculum update cycle, which includes a lot of professional development to help our teachers. And our teachers have a significant role in that process, and they own the curriculum updates. With that said, the time to do experiences is what we've obviously tried to prioritize with our proposal.
So the phrase bridge the gap has come up a lot. A lot of people don't understand what that means and how it might pertain to this proposal. Can you explain what it means and if it is related to this proposal?
Sure. Bridging the gap. I mean, you'll see a goal in our strategic plan our board's been involved with this, our community. We have about 100 people involved in the steering process of strategic planning. And one of the goals that you'll see come out of that relates to closing the achievement and opportunity gaps. During our conversations about improvement, we'd like to raise the floor and the ceiling in the district, so to speak, so that all students are growing a substantial amount every year. And we have evidence that shows that we're struggling with growth academically, in particular with disadvantaged students, whether students coming from low socioeconomic backgrounds or students coming into our schools with special learning needs. And we would target those needs with additional time, no question about it. The opportunity gap is also part of the gap discussion, and that relates to students' opportunity to engage in things that we offer as a school district. A simple example would be the item I mentioned regarding the ensemble rehearsals and being part of those experiences. So with that said, yes, we would absolutely continue to try to do better with that, and the time surely would be give us a little more opportunity.
Yeah, and the other piece to that, we certainly don't want to unintentionally contribute to the opportunity gap, but the students that Bob was referring to, sometimes they're missing something at the elementary level to get that intervention. So because we have such a short day, we're having those students come out of science and social studies to receive an intervention. So we don't want students to have to do that. We don't want our educators to have to make those choices. And by extending the school day, we wouldn't have to make those choices. And students would be in for core learning, but would also get something in addition. So,
and I think related to this is one of the things that you've talked about in this proposal is pulling kids out of class time. That lengthening the school day will help with gifted and learning enrichment,
Right.
which is related to this issue. Can you talk about that a little bit, please?
Well, I'll mention a couple things and then ask Vern to jump in. I do think it depends on the student. If a student has needs beyond what we're able to be responsive to in the core classroom, in particular our elementary program, it may make sense to have the student leave the classroom and get some experiences. It may make sense for the student to be able to receive those experiences in the classroom. And obviously, the timepiece, gives us more opportunities so that, we're not having those students miss valuable experiences. So it could be a combination of things. I think it really depends on that particular student.
Sure, and to add to that, we've got some very dedicated specialists in our district. Title One, reading specialists, instructional support teachers, our special educators, and just to reiterate what Bob said is really, being able to push into classrooms to provide that support, but also to be able to pull out. And our teachers will have a systematic structure for doing that, so teachers will know when that occurs. So if they've got a group that does need to come out and receive an intervention, they'll structure their lesson with that in mind. And maybe that's the first group of students that teacher would work with, and then they'd be off reading independently or conferring with each other. And then the teacher would pull a different group, but know that those students near the end of the period would need to leave potentially for that support. So it does provide those opportunities. The extended day proposal provides more of those opportunities for us to do that.
So there's a question here from Bridget Ann, and this is not in context, so I'll just put it in context. It's related to athletics. And students are going to miss a lot more school time, especially for away games, than they would with a normal schedule. And I think if you guys could also speak to the zero period as part of this,
sure.
That's another big topic that is going around.
You bet. Well, it depends on the sport. I mean, if a team has 10 away games, competitions, it depends how many fall on weekends versus school days. For the ones that fall on school days, it'd be 24 minutes more missed class time for teams that have to leave and miss school time. For some of our sports, they have later start times, so there's less missed school time. So yes, for those away day events that happen on school days, they would. There's two things I want to mention here. One, we've been collaborating with the Mid-Penn, our current athletic director, Peg Pennepacker, who's retiring at the conclusion of the school year, as well as Chris Weekland, who's coming on as our new athletic director. We've been working to listen to our coaches about ways to improve this. So they've taken that information and communicated with the Mid-Penn, and we have a little more than a year if we were to make this change to try to impact the scheduling there. Some of the teams that compete get home late at night. If they start at 7 p.m., they're getting home much later than teams that start at 4:30 p.m. So the student schedule starting a little later, as it is now, face value benefits some kids to a higher degree than others. We want to make sure that the experience is positive for all students, regardless of what happens to our student day or schedule. There is a program with quite a few student athletes at the secondary level, swimming, that has a sport where morning workouts before school are happening. So those students are in school for those morning workouts at 6 a.m. Obviously, it's a choice that people in that sport make. Obviously, this would benefit a sport like that a little bit more reasonably. In regard to the zero period, I mentioned some things earlier about that. We're looking at expanding. We currently have an experience before school for physical education. That's an option. We'd like to expand the options if this shift in secondary day happened, and truly try to improve each student's opportunities and experiences that they and their family desire, whether it's a student engaged in our district, whether it's clubs, the arts, or athletics, or a student who's employed. We have plenty of students who are engaged in work experiences, whether they're internships or employment. And I think that's really important to understand what their needs are and interests. So that zero period would be targeted based on what students and their families desire, whether it's traditional 45-minute period or whether it's a hybrid, which would include some online experiences to try to truly maximize the time when those students are with us during that time slot.
So maybe this should have been our first question here, but this is a really good question that came in. Bob, were teachers part of this proposal?
Absolutely. During the past year, we worked with a team of teachers. It included quite a few elementary teachers, leadership from our Teachers Association, and we worked through a lot of details to get to this point. As I said earlier, our initial thinking before we even engaged in the actual construction of a proposal, I hadn't in particular thought about starting the elementary day earlier than the secondary day. Because our elementary day does occur within our secondary day, you can see the constraints on what we need to work through to make any changes there. I do think the proposal, especially when we look at what we know about adolescence, I think it is much better, and the teachers were a huge part in this. And there's no question that we want our teachers to be highly prepared for when they work with our students. They're the most important resource that we provide to our students as a school system. So we included their expertise through the whole process, and they had a real loud voice throughout it. And we went to them and asked them for help, and they really helped us through it all. And I couldn't be more proud of how hard they worked and committed to trying to develop our proposal.
Okay, Bob. It seems that transportation is key in this proposal. Why didn't you wait for those? This is referring to the. Sorry, it doesn't say it's referring to the study, the transportation study. Mm-hmm. So you're doing a transportation study, and it says it seems the transportation is key to this proposal. Why didn't you wait for those results before you shared this with the public?
Well, number one, we wanted to have an iteration of discussion around this entire proposal at this point in time because we wanted to take this public and talk to the community. When you look at 2 years from now for the 2018-19 school year, we've been interacting with our board around a time frame that would hopefully have a decision in October. And so consequently, we wanted to have some discussion, an iteration of discussion with our community as to why did we make this proposal? What could it look like? And then also hear what people are thinking. We're taking a lot of notes, all the face-to-face events. Obviously, this evening we're taking notes, and we're hearing from people throughout our school community. We want to improve the proposal. So when we get the transportation study as we head into the summer, we're going to work on it and come back with an updated proposal by September with our board. And we're going to try to impact what we've done so far in a real positive manner, and then have another iteration with our community, and hopefully our board will feel comfortable in making a decision in October. And so that's pretty much the reasoning, Nabil.
And this is sort of back to the beginning too, but why does the high school need to start later?
Right. Well, the one slide that I shared with you, we had it as a mini lesson on logistics. The key reality is the turnaround time for our transportation. With our elementary day, that could either go later or earlier and shift. It can't go within the secondary day unless we greatly expanded our secondary day. So in our proposal, we've requested the elementary day to start earlier, and that would enable us to start the secondary day later, which is consistent with what we know about adolescents and what's best for them. So all K-12 students would be able to get an ample amount of sleep on a daily basis. We also know that this proposal will give us the time that we need in our elementary day. So you could go either way with it, Nabil. I think what we've proposed with the elementary day starting earlier, that really drives the secondary day starting later. And if you want to show that slide again, I'm welcome to walk through it again. But that's
just for clarification, Bob, why can't all the schools start at the same time?
Well, we would need to purchase another set of buses, and that would be over $3.5 million.
Closer to 4, I think, yeah.
And the annual operation, would include that. So that would be a pretty big price tag to double our transportation expenses for our daily school day operation. Mm-hmm. One of the other key parts for that going later, the deal is if we said the elementary day would start after secondary, they would then dismiss after secondary. And I gave you an example where it was a 6-hour, 40-minute elementary day. The secondary day would have to slide up 20 minutes and start at 7:50 if we wanted elementary to get out at 3:36, for example. You can move these around. There's no question you can shift these. However, with a 7:50 start time, now we would be picking up high school and middle school students beginning at 6:18 a.m. We currently pick up secondary students starting at 6:38 a.m. and we want to do better than that. With the current proposal, nobody be picked up before 7 a.m. We're hoping to get that to no students before 7:10ish, but we realize there's a lot of logistics and we don't have the study back yet. We we want to start picking students up, as close to 7:10, 7:15 being the earliest time spot.
I think we're going to go ahead. Looks like we have 3 more questions we're going to answer, and then we'll end the live stream here. So, Vern, this one's for you.
Okay.
I've heard the morning SEAL programs might be eliminated. Is this true?
No, it's we're looking at that. I think we would want to flex our programs to the new times of the elementary schedule. Very aware that we have students who take advantage of the 7:30 SEAL morning program. We definitely flex the program and look at that as a potential option. We want to be sensitive to that and keep that option in place for our families. So we'll be looking at that, but I would envision we would flex the SEAL program and not eliminate the morning program. It's a good question. Thank you.
And this is a follow-up question from talking about the zero period earlier. This person says, the zero period is an interesting idea. Is there any way that the idea could pertain to the elementary school?
It's a good question. We'd have to take a look at that. We've talked about that potentially at the middle school level. I don't think we've had discussion around that at the elementary level. That's something we could certainly have some discussion around.
I do think that the challenge of the zero period would be the transportation piece. We are looking at some unique opportunities. We do run late buses in our secondary schools so students can have those activity experiences, and if they can't get a ride from their family, they can still get a ride home or a ride close to their home. And that would probably be the biggest challenge to zero periods at the middle level and elementary level. With that said, if we run them in a hybrid model, so to speak, where there's less frequent on-site requirements for the courses, we believe that it could be a more reasonable opportunity for families to choose to engage in. We do definitely want to look at beyond the school day options that really work well with families, both desires as well as the things they're engaged in as families.
Very good. And this is going to be our last question here, so I'm going to give this one to you, Bob, as we start to wrap it up. But the last question is, can you be more specific about what the extra 24 minutes of core instruction time would include?
Sure. Well, in the core instructional time, there's no question that we would provide opportunities to do more experiences. For example, I had mentioned language arts with what we're doing with reading and writing in our elementary schools. It would be opportunities to simply have more experiences for students. And if parents want to come in and see what's happening in our schools at this time and get a sense of what we're doing, it's, when we made the changes in language arts, we didn't go out and buy a program. We developed our curriculum with the expectation that we were going to put the best children's literature possible in students' hands. That included both being responsive to where they're ready as far as complexity of text, but also what their interests are. And the guide on the side helping us is really the National Reading Writing Project, which is based out of Columbia University in New York, and Lucy Calkins is kind of the point person. So we've looked to try to find the best people possible to help be guide on the side for what we're trying to do there, and it's a very challenging process for our teachers, and it's really pretty impressive experience watching kids engage in that. So you'd see more of that approach to teaching and learning in our other core content areas. As we mentioned earlier, we are working on updating our math curriculum. We know we also need to update our science and social studies curriculum, and we would have a highly experiential plan in place, similar to what we're doing with language arts. So I think that's a key response to that. With that said, Nabil, I'd like to welcome our board president, Amber Concepcion, to share a little bit of her perspective on things from the board view on what we've proposed. Welcome, Amber.
Thanks, Bob, and thank you, Vernon. I'd like to thank everyone who's participated in the forum tonight, and thank everyone who shared their thinking out at our in-person forums and also by emails to the board. We are hoping this format that we debuted here tonight allows you to communicate with Bob and Vernon in a helpful and convenient manner. We all want to make the right decision for our community and our community's children. And so we really appreciate the feedback that parents from the community have shared with us throughout this process. Our board's looking forward to continue hearing from all of you this spring. And in the fall, we do expect to see a refined version of the proposal from the district administration. At that time, we will have further opportunities for community education and interaction regarding the proposal. The board is planning to vote on the school day schedule by the end of October, so that there is sufficient time for the district and the community to make plans for the following school year. And as always, school board meetings are open to the public, they're broadcast live, and they're available for online viewing via a link on our website. So I'd like to thank everyone again for tuning in for this event. I hope it was helpful, and thank you for your ongoing support for our schools and our students. Dr. O'Donnell.
Thanks, Amber. As we wrap up, I just want to share with everybody that, what we've developed so far is a proposal. We hope to improve it heading into the summer and as we come back in the fall. And we're not sitting here saying what we've crafted to this point is perfect for every family. I truly do believe that a proposal or some version of what we've developed would help our very good school district to get a little bit better, and that's what we're trying to do. And I truly believe in what we've worked on this past year would help us to do that. As I said earlier, we're continuing to engage with the community through conversations. We have 2 more face-to-face events, Park Forest Elementary School on May 25th at 6 p.m., and then also at State High, the North Building Library on June 1st at 7 p.m. are 2 other opportunities if you want to come out and have some conversation with us and share your questions, any of your feedback, and we greatly appreciate that. With that said, I'd like to thank the team for putting this together tonight. This is probably one of the funkier experiences I've ever had with communicating, but I really believe our whole hope of trying to fit into very busy family lives was what we were trying to do here tonight. So we're also interested to know what you thought about this type of communication vehicle. So thanks so much to everybody at home and here that put this together. Thanks. Good night.
Thank you.